Welcome to Backstage with Becca with special guest Alex Lyras. Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca. On this episode, this award-winning playwright, screenwriter, and director is known for Plasticity, The Common Air, and the current Company of Angels play Aristotle and Alexander when Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Backstage with Becca. On this episode, this award-winning playwright, screenwriter, and director is known for Plasticity, The Common Air, and the current Company of Angels play Aristotle and Alexander. He's worked in TV and film, sold pilots to major studios, and is a member of the Writers Guild of America West. Please welcome Alex Lyras. So, first of all, how are you? How is everything going with the run? It's still pretty early in this run of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, the first weekend was a smash, and the second we are we recording this or what are we doing? We're just doing
Yeah, so it records. Yeah.
okay. I have we started that?
Yes.
Okay. It's good. It's pretty thrilling to get reactions from people, and this is a fairly dense and intellectual play. Some friends are asking if it is, can audiences handle it? And the answer I think is yes. I think ultimately the play is a student-teacher debate.
Yeah.
Everybody can relate to that as either a student or a teacher or a parent. Um, but I when I do theater for me and TV and film, you always have an eyeball towards commercialism, and God forbid we use the dumbing things down, but you only have so much to explore in a certain way for those mediums, although
Yeah.
they're more philosophical films and more philosophical TV shows. So when I get to the theater, I cancel all that out, and I write kind of for what I would like to see.
Yes.
And growing up and pursuing and having a background in theater, I like the more challenging things. Yeah, so I would go, if I go to England, or I would see Tom Stoppard or Carol Churchill. Those are two playwrights I love, and they are both, you got to be
Amazing.
ready for it. You can't snooze. And so to me, that type of challenge is good. I like to have heightened language, even if though it sounds regular. I'm not talking about rhyming. I'm just talking about heightened metaphorical language. I love conflicts that are unresolved. I like elevated ideas. I like philosophical ideas that are worked out and debated. And so that is a little bit what I wanted to tackle with this play. And and it's going really well. Even if people don't get 100% of it, they are kind of leaving lit up, ready to talk about the ideas.
Yes. And I feel like I was saying when I went, especially, I feel like I overheard a lot of people who had seen it also at the Getty who were coming back to see it, and they were like talking with their friends about like the changes that have happened since the Getty, and like the space how it affects the show. And it was just
Yeah,
like it was really fun to see like how intrigued people are with the
yeah,
show because they're coming back multiple times, so I think that's a good
yeah.
sign for you.
It is. It's a great sign, and as a writer, you learn to rewrite. Um, so the Getty was interesting. It's a giant proscenium. It's a 250 seat theater. It was awesome to do it there, and realizing you have to present the play.
Yes.
You have to present it to the audience as opposed to just doing it. Now in this theater, the actors have a year under their belt. um, they're realizing they can do things a little bit smaller, and there's a little micro behavior and micro expressions. And I think that is a really new, it's new for the audience and it's new for the actors. Um, and it delivers the ideas in a different way. That the intimacy, and it's not particularly small theater. We have tiny
Oh,
theaters in LA, but it's spacious, and but it does shift the dynamic of the relationship of presenting it. You're presenting it kind of a almost documentary style.
I, yes, yes. And this, I like the screen too. The screen behind is really fun. Is really like it makes it really interesting.
Yeah, you need something these days. And the more justified, the better. So this fortunately works well in terms of, we can't have these sets of these ancient temples.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
working with Immerse Studios, Tim Kennedy and John Bunk's company, they used AI to create some pretty fascinating backdrops
Yeah.
that make you feel like you're in an ancient time. And then a lot of the other backdrops are real. There's like a mosaic of Dionysus that I got when I was visiting Corinth, and then the trees and the locations are from the actual locations where Aristotle taught. So that tree is really there. And then the cicadas and the crickets and the
Wow.
goats are all from Greece.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's really part of it.
That's really cool. I'm very lucky going into the show. I feel like, I don't know, maybe more people than I think have gotten the chance to travel to Greece. But I went with my family back a couple years ago. Like it was like 2018, 2019 to Greece and just beautiful places in Greece.
Do you remember some of
Beautiful.
the sites? Did you get to see some of the sites?
I went to a lot of historical sites in Athens.
Yeah,
I
sure.
forgot which exactly,
Yeah.
just because it was so long ago, and I feel like the pandemic added like 10 years to
Yeah.
my.
You probably saw the Acropolis. You
Yes,
probably
I did.
there.
I absolutely did,
Yeah.
and that was amazing. We went to Athens, Mykonos, and Santorini on our trip. And we went to
Yeah.
Athens first and saw like all the historical stuff, and then Mykonos and Santorini, and like did like shopping in the beach and gelato and all that
Mhm.
stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that was it's cool going in to see like to see a show about Greece after getting the chance to actually travel to Greece.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more tangible. I'm Greek from New York, and you grow up and you kind of avoid it for a while, right? You're like, I just want to be American.
Yeah.
And then you start to dip your foot in, and there's many different histories of Greece. There's early Bronze Age, there's classical Periclean age, and this one takes place in the Hellenistic period, which Athens has declined as you learn at the beginning of the show. It's not what it used to be, but the culture is still there. And
Oh,
this is another parallel with today where with the highs are the lows, and with the lows are the highs.
yeah.
So it was a terrible time for Athens. Democracy had basically failed. There was a tyrant in charge, and then but you have the height of philosophy. You
Yeah.
have Plato and Aristotle. You have the height of theater. You have the height of the artwork and painting and pottery. So always a mixed bag in a way that keeps you leaning forward in the history. And I think we're there too now. We have some crazy stuff going on politically, and but at the same time, there's new technologies that are fascinating. I think art is still thriving.
Yes.
Um, yeah, this history repeats in more ways than one.
I mean, stuff shows like this are so important because like I love seeing art in LA and I
Yeah,
love seeing not only these touring shows come through, but like original shows that you can like only see in LA or that start in LA or build in LA.
yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, people are down on the industry a little bit now, and I think it's justified because A lot of production has left and things haven't come back. And then we had fires and then we had strikes and all of this stuff has taken its toll.
Yes.
But I have to say, theater wise, I love it here. I think there's a good bit of theater being done at this level, the independent level, and I'm gonna get crazy. I'm gonna say more than New York.
I I think so.
New
I
York is they've lost a lot of independent theaters, and it's just so expensive. I would say it's at least triple. It would cost me at least triple to do this play, maybe more in New York. And there's not enough space, and there's no parking anywhere, and blah blah blah. So all that fun stuff. So, but I look at what's going on in town and at Sacred Fools, at the Hudson, Open Fist, and
yeah.
Pasadena. All of these places are booked,
Yep. It
and yeah,
people are going.
yeah. I mean, it's been hard. It's audience is always the battle.
Yes.
The battle is always getting people to get there.
Yeah. I you were talking earlier about the spaces and the differences in spaces. What do you prefer with spaces? Do you prefer a bigger space or a more intimate space? Because I think my answer would be the intimate. I love
Yeah,
intimate settings.
yeah. I mean, I've done 40 seats, and this place is 99, and the Getty was 250, but because of their mailing list, it was full. And, I'd rather be into performing in front of 250. That was amazing because, audiences begin to become an organism. They're their own
Yeah.
living, breathing organism. And they caught on early. The Getty audience was also into classics. So they knew a lot of the references, but we had like raucous laughter and, and gasps and stuff like that occurring that have been much more tempered down in the smaller space. But I think the acting has kicked up a notch. You had to be bigger to fill the Getty,
Yes.
and now this space, the actors can relax a little. And I'm saying, listen, you can relax a little. You don't have to project as much, but don't lose momentum.
Right. Yeah, don't and or the passion behind it too. I feel like is important to still have. Well, I'm uh so I'm curious about what was I going? I just lost my train of thought
Yeah,
completely.
it happens.
I love that.
Yeah,
ADHD is so much fun. So, oh, I mean, you talked a lot about during the talk back about like the inspiration behind the cre- like your
yeah,
creation of this. And I was wondering like what was like the first instant you were like, I have to get this play out to
yeah.
audiences?
It's interesting. Trying to think about what the answer is. There's a museum in Greece. So the north of Greece, the big city is Thessaloniki. You have Athens down below, and Thessaloniki is like this amazing town. It's like a hour plane ride, or you can take the train up there, but it is a university town ultimately. And that is where a little bit east is where Aristotle is from, and a little bit west is where Pella is, where King Philip and Alexander the Great grew up. So I heard the museum was great. I went to the museum, and it's kind of a fascinating museum. They built this museum over the discovery of King Philip's tombs. So you actually walk down and then you enter this museum, and it's cool and dark, and Greece is always so hot. So the first thing is like,
Yeah.
wow. And then there's various exhibits, and then you have these three tombs, and the museum is built over them. And throughout that, I started to read on the placards on the walls, and there's a little film too that sets you up of all the things that happened during this Hellenistic period, which I was not an expert in. It's like a whole other place to study, right? Hellenism
Yeah.
is I studied, Socrates and Pericles and the Golden Age, which is
Gosh.
450, right? So this is 350. This is 350 BC. It's 100 years later. And when I realized that I was a philosophy major, I realized that Aristotle tutored Alexander the Great. I was like, how do we not know more about that? um, it sounded like a commercial idea because everybody knows who Alexander the Great is. Most people have heard of Aristotle, and I imagined seeing that, in a seasonal catalog that the Geffen would send out. Here's our plays for the season.
Yeah,
We're doing As Bees and Honey Drowns and Alexander Aristotle. I could see it in the
definitely.
and because it felt actually like a commercial idea. And then being a philosophy major, I knew enough about Aristotle to
Yeah.
make this interesting. But he's the least of the people I studied in college. You read Plato, and Aristotle's a whole other type of philosophical class and thinking. So the birth of the idea just came by, wow, these two giants crossed paths, and even in fiction, there's not much about it. There's 100 books on Alexander the Great that are fictional, and they always only have a few pages that Aristotle passed through, but he was there for 3 years. They had it fights.
Oh
That
yeah.
little Alexander was totally entitled.
Well, as a child too, especially like a young, like, come on.
Yeah.
I
No,
love
he
that. I think that I what's the actor's name who plays Alexander? Because I love that he's like so good at coming across as like a teenager.
yeah, that's Nicholas Clary, and
So
he was
good.
great. He was great on the audition a year and a half ago, and he's just gotten better.
He's so good. Like I
Yeah,
was like, he's just like a teenager at his
yeah,
core. And
yeah, he's doing it.
that's I feel like what you all are trying to get across is that like at the end of the day, this is like, yeah, people know who he is because historically he's kind of famous, but
Yes.
also it's a kid.
Yeah. So I had a funny conversation with a teen, like a 17-year-old who's a bright kid, and he came to one of my shows, and
Aw.
he talked. We spoke after, and he was an actor, and he wanted to go to college for acting and this and that. And I said, make sure you go somewhere that will teach you the classics, because it's important to get your hands around Shakespeare and stuff. And he's like, Shakespeare, yeah, not a good writer. He's like, it just makes no sense. It's like, it kind of makes no sense. And I said, I'm like, don't say that in your interview, and don't say that on your essay as you apply to the school. He didn't understand it yet, but the confidence coming out of him was like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Oh my God.
And I took a moment and I said, eat me. I've always been a confident kid. I still have an ego, but I don't think I ever went that far. I knew what was sacred, even if I didn't understand it. We read play scenes of Shakespeare in high school, but I didn't like it.
Right, because I mean, you don't completely, you're interested in other things at that time that are like, I don't know, it's just like kid stuff at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
You're interested in that, and then you fail to see how important what you're reading in Shakespeare's work is.
Yeah, and how many phrases we still have from him, and every plot is that. If you watch Game of Thrones, they're borrowing from Shakespeare. They're
Yeah.
borrowing from the Greeks too. They're borrowing from the tragedies quite a bit, with like sacrificing daughters and stuff like
Oh, yeah.
that, and betrayals and this and that. So it's just a funny moment. Well, I mean, how much background did you have coming in, and did you feel like it was accessible to you?
So I feel like I feel like it's interesting because I was going to ask my when my train of thought got cut off, I was gonna ask uh how, like, did you learn about like Greek mythology in school? Because I did in like fourth grade. I don't know if I was lucky or not. And it was like an extensive period of time where like my school, I went to a private school and they taught us like all the Greek history, and we had like a Greek fair and stuff like that, and we got to like dress up. It was really fun, bring like do arts and crafts. And I think I would have had going in more extensive knowledge at that time
Yeah.
than currently
Yeah.
about the show, which is kind
Yeah.
of wild to me because I was only like 10, but I was having the time of my life trying to prepare like a Greek festival table with my friends
Wow.
in fourth grade. So,
So, I've gotten a lot of the reaction, this type of reaction where, someone from the audience will say, you're making me go back and I want to open up my books again from high school and
yeah,
college. And yeah, I think everyone will touch on it at some point if it's just the Olympian gods. But also, every time the Olympics pops up, that'll bring ancient Greek history. The Iliad and the Odyssey is something that we know about. The Odyssey is being remade again, and Matt Damon is playing Odysseus. I mean, the story never gets old. But yeah, so people have enough, and the because it's so ancient and so early, we can relate to the ancient Greeks as people that were struggling with the human condition almost more so than the Egyptians that had a pharaoh and people underneath it. So the ancient Greece becomes more accessible in a way. So everyone knows something about it
yes,
and everyone will hear the names in the play that they'll recognize. They'll hear Socrates, Zeus, and yeah, and Agamemnon and Helen, and
yeah,
so now because it never leaves popular culture.
absolutely.
um
And it shouldn't.
yeah, I mean, in a way that it's foundational, but yeah, so I kind of like that. That the audience may not be totally up to date with all of those details. They don't have to be.
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting if you like found a school that does something similar to what my private school did.
Yeah.
And when I was in like fourth grade and like did a whole section on like Greece and brought those kids in to see the show and see like what their takeaway was versus like the adults coming to see the show.
Yeah, I
'Cause
agree.
it'd
Yeah.
be I feel like if they're if they have like a whole semester of learning about Greece in one of their classes in that time period in one of their classes, then they're into it.
Yeah. No,
And
I think that's so true. And it's kind of happened to degrees. A 15-year-old there, a reviewer brought their kid, and the kid was lit up because he had gone through that phase where he learned every single god, and then he learned, he knew all the wars and he knew
yeah,
all the geographical locations, and yeah, it's just awesome when that enthusiasm pours out, and they're foundational ideas that we keep struggling with.
yeah.
So you can
Has-
always go back to the source.
have you gotten like any kid who's like really into like things like Percy Jackson and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's this kid. That was part of his foundation. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. See,
Um,
I think that's important too. I don't know it I like the first movie
yeah,
and book of Percy Jackson, but I don't know about like the follow-ups and I haven't watched the series because I don't I was like I feel like the first introduction I got to it was perfect.
yeah, it strays pretty far. I haven't delved into the rest of it either. But it's just borrowing from it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't know. I like original ideas, so maybe not. I don't know. But
And one of the themes of the play is to, contain mythology and
yeah,
understand that it is a storytelling tool. This is what
right.
Aristotle's telling Alexander. And don't, there's a new science, and the new science is fact-based and evidence-based, and we're going to use logic and deductive reasoning to get there. So
Ag-
Alexander's saying, well, Zeus says, or you know, trying to defer to the gods,
Yeah,
and Aristotle's like, look, I'm not telling you they're useless. They serve a purpose, but this is not the work that we're doing. We're going to do
yeah,
evidence-based work, which was an actual moment in time in history where we were moving away from mythology and into a way of thinking that was a lot more effective for running a city
Yeah.
and creating constitutions and creating democracy. So and every time these philosophers got taken down, and every one of them was eventually a threat to the city, right?
Thinking.
They all got taken down for impiety.
It's like thinking outside the box too. It's like, well, you're
Yeah.
thinking differently than me and I don't understand it. So I
Yeah.
don't want to try to understand it. I just want to say that you're wrong.
But it doesn't change. I mean, fundamentalism is occurring now. There's a wave of fundamentalism, which is if you disagree with me, you're my enemy.
Right.
My way or the highway, or you're a sinner, and it's just shocking that after we get to a point, reaching an intellectual high, where things are lucid and clear and sustainable and provable, that it's amazing that we can go backwards, but it keeps happening throughout history.
Oh, yes. It's like if someone asks a question based on like something that, especially on social media, I feel like nowadays, if you like dare to say, well, I understand your point. However, let me try to bring something else up. They're like, no, 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 no. Like, my point's right. And I have to ignore everything you say because, like, you can't be right. I'm right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no listening. It's two sides talking.
Yeah, there's no conversations. And I feel like conversations are so important to have. Like, otherwise, no one understands each other's point of view. So I'm curious why philosophy? Why did you choose to study philosophy in school? What was that interest? Like,
I remember liking everything because I was curious, and I like to read and write. So high school, I was better kind of in English than I was in math. And I went to Bucknell University in Pennsylvania, and that was like it was a big engineering school, and it was also business. So I remember second semester freshman year sitting in an auditorium of 500 kids. And it was like the whole class, and it was, if you want to be a business major, you have to take economics 101. You have to take management 101. You have to take management 202. You have to take statistics 202. And I just remember being like, I don't want to take that class. I don't want to take that class. I don't want to take that class. Like, I mean, they laid out what you needed for a major, and it was 4 years of classes that I had no interest in, although it was effective, and I did take some. And then, the philosophy department was small, but they were continental, meaning not analytics, which gets a little bit more, logic and symbolic logic. So it was more reading like Sartre and Nietzsche and Heidegger and the ancient Greeks. And I would stay after class. Like I was 20 minutes after class, continuing my conversation with the teacher, not worrying about, lunch. And so it was just a very clear choice for me in terms of what was engaging my attention. Uh,
yeah.
and I've been very pragmatic with that education. I went to law school just because of the rigorousness of the thinking and the preparation that you have to do when you're working in philosophy and writing a thesis. I wanted to get a PhD in philosophy, but it didn't seem like the exact right choice. So I ended up writing and acting and using these ideas in pretty much whatever, how in any form that I could. But at the foundation of any compelling story is some kind of dilemma or conundrum that is, what your character is trying to resolve. And those are all philosophical issues. So yeah, philosophy just seemed interesting. The writing was interesting, working on the papers was interesting, the conversations in the class were interesting.
Well, and now like it helps with the show because you know how a two-sided conversation sounds between people. Like you know how important conversation is for our society.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hate to get older and sound like cynical, but it's hard to sustain a conversation these days with many people. Either they aren't able to get deep, or they are afraid of kind of peeling back the layers of the onions. But mostly it's mostly about interest. I mean, I lose patience really quickly at a dinner party when it's like it just gets into what TV show you've seen. And it's
Yeah,
what we all do it. What are you watching is kind of most of the conversation. And I'm like, okay, why is that interesting you?
yeah,
I'd rather kind of get to the next part of the conversation, but everything it's trivia rules.
right. Yeah, it definitely, and it also TikTok, it has shortened everyone's attention span. Instagram Reels, it's like 15
Yeah,
seconds. If you,
7, I heard.
yeah, like if you make something longer than like 30 seconds, people suddenly become disinterested. And I'm
Yeah.
like, how are you all even watching TV shows, first of all?
Well, that's the strange part. All of my Instagram reels are 5 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes. Wait, are you doing like, wait, how are you making 5 hours in
Just
5 hour
kidding.
Instagram reels, first of
Just
all?
kidding. But we have, the promos for the play, which are getting great views, they're at least 90 seconds.
Yeah.
But they're interesting. We're mixing it up and changing it up. Look, I'm all for variation, keeping things interesting by having some visuals and having some music and having some clips and some interviews. But the people that can't get through 90 seconds are not my audience.
Nope, nope. And I don't think you want them to be your audience
Yeah.
at the end of the day because they're gonna come in and have a closed mind. I
Yeah, Aristotle says in the play, the secret to, success and education is change, or
yeah,
life. The secret is change, and someone who can't change their mind can't change anything at all.
yeah,
So it's a nice moment of realizing that the world is in flux, and you have to be flexible,
yep.
and you have to be kind of open to what comes your way, because nothing is easy, and anyone that says it is not engaged at the right level.
Not paying attention. Speaking of that, do you have a favorite quote in the show?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. After studying philosophy and hearing these things over and over again, um, the from Aristotle and other characters, because a lot of them are quoted in the play, um, verbatim, right, from the actual text. It depends on the context. One of my favorites is when Alexander's asking about all the parts in the boar. He's like, "What this and the intestines and the spleen, the liver?" And he says, "Are all these things necessary?" And Aristotle's real life quote is, "Nature does nothing in vain." So it uses, you know, it does nothing in vain. It's like it's exactly what it needs to be.
Yeah,
And you just see a tree and you don't realize there are roots when you're younger, and then you're like, why are there roots? Well, there's a reason there are roots. And he talks about an octopus. Why do they have 8 arms, and why does it work this way? And there's a reason for it. So nature does nothing in vain is one of my favorites. Another one of my favorites is when Alexander is talking about how he wants to invite Diogenes the Cynic, who's another philosopher, to come to his palace and be loving the palace because they have everything there. We have food and we have gold and we have statues, we have everything. And this is a real quote from Diogenes. He says, "In a rich man's house, there's no place to spit but his face." And it's like
wait,
these,
wild.
yeah, what'd you say?
I said wild.
Yeah, I mean, but this is also the beginning of the asceticism, which I have, always valued in my life,
Yeah.
especially out here in LA and New York. they're both very materialistic cities. We know what kind of car you drive and paying $250 for sushi per person, right?
Oh my God.
You realize that that there are some basics, and to not have money at the top of your list for a goal is rare, and certainly we all need it to live. But these philosophers just sacrificed it all. They wanted no possessions, and I think Aristotle always says, a good life is to live fulfilled with little.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, so desire, the cycle of desire, Aristotle talks about, um, always filling, seldom full.
I feel like the example that you used that really got me just now was the $250 sushi. It's just like it's so mind-boggling. I don't know, to say the least. That like,
It's
why are
it,
you
that's
going
that's
to
like mid-level. Yeah, that's
instead of
mid-level. There's
half
places now that are on the Michelin list in LA. There's places that are $700
it's like wild, and
from
you can
Japan, and
also
it's
get the same quality for like $20 or less.
yeah, probably a little more, but you're right. I mean, our local spot is still a Japanese chef at Shintaro, and that is 150 bucks for two people. And it might as well be, it's as good as any $700 sushi place.
Oh my God.
And it's rare to go there, so it's
Yeah.
kind of an event and a special thing to go there and appreciate it. But yeah, materialism is the great plague. Um, we're,
Yeah.
we're we're advertised to from the second we go to sleep to the second we wake up. Buy this or have this experience. I love when they start selling experiences, right? There's like a experience that will expand your life or make you beautiful, or we're
Well,
now selling philosophical ideas.
I was gonna say also like seeing stuff, speaking of materialistic, like seeing stuff during the Met Gala time.
Yeah.
And I know people love the Met Gala, so don't come after me, people, but
Yeah,
like
everything
just
has its
seeing
context.
the just seeing like the cost of stuff
Yeah.
that people are wearing to the Met Gala.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, like 1 second everyone online is like saying there's more important things than money. The next, we're praising these $1 million looks that no one can afford.
Right. I don't know. Look, the tree it has its place, right? It's an interesting spectacle, the Met Gala, and
Yeah,
people go all out. I mean, I don't particularly want it. And I think that's, people that really do, or I'm concerned if that's like, the goal is to get there.
right.
Um, but it does have its place, and it is a kind of a phenomenon. It's
It
just
is.
not part of my value system.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But you're right. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating to see people's reaction and to see funny memes online, but it's
It
just like,
helps the Met, which is, a
yeah,
museum that which their goals are to educate people and to turn people
that's
onto
good.
art and history. So yeah, that part of it is the
Yeah.
deal that you make with the devil, like we all do at some point when you want to earn a living.
Yes, that's good. I wonder if the people who I've always kind of like wondered if the people who go to the Met Gala wearing what they're wearing learn like the history behind what is being shown at the museum
I
too.
doubt it.
I don't know.
I just doubt it.
I'm just like that'd be interesting if they had like a whole little like meeting beforehand
They're
about
walking right past the
analyzing.
ancient Greek vases, being not even looking at them. But you did remind me, the cast, when we went to the Getty, we walked around the Getty with one of their archaeologists and learned about the statues and talked about daily life and what daily life would have been like, and what palace life would have been like, what life was like for women, and they each statues and jewelry and all kinds of stuff up there. So that I think grounded the cast in the reality of this show. You know, we talk about mythology in ancient Greece, and you have one idea, but you realize that this is a tangible historical period,
Yeah.
and here are the artifacts, and it brings it home in a way that I think made the actors very authentic. And so there are benefits to learning things.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And seeing like that there's so much that relates to the present day too.
Yeah.
And that it's not just like irrelevant because it's not. Just kind of going off that about it still being relevant even though it like this time period was forever ago. What do you hope audiences, whether they are experts or consider themselves experts in the subject, or whether they know literally nothing about the subject, or what take away from your show?
Um, it's a good question. I think you know, the show is about someone who's going to become one of the most powerful people in the world, Alexander the Great, and Aristotle, who is a certified genius. And their debate is about values ultimately. Like, what is the most important thing? What is the best way to rule is pretty much a debate in the play. And, Alexander wants to conquer and defeat, and Aristotle says, what happens after? Do we not go to war so that we can live in peace? And it's just, again, it's a very fundamental 101 question about whatever it is you are striving for. And everyone has ambition. We're in a city filled with ambition out here in Los Angeles. So what do you do when you get what you want? And there are some amazing artists and stars even who have foundations and give back to their like education and stuff like that, um, with schools, and others just accumulate money and cars and restaurants. And so I do hope that it provokes the thought about, what it is to live meaningfully, not materialistically. I think that's a big one. um, and also, you see that there's this proto-feminist thread in the play where everyone talks about the birth of democracy being in Athens, Greece. Well, democracy was for the men, so the women were confined. And Sparta, who is Athens' enemy, their women were actually much more advanced. They didn't have as much culture as Athens. Athens had theater and philosophy and architecture and vase painting. And when you go to Sparta now and visit Sparta in Greece, there's not a whole lot there. They didn't build beautiful temples, and they didn't worship in the same way, and they didn't educate in the same way. They were a warrior class, but their women could own property, their women could have contracts, their women were. They could raise families and be the primary caretaker. So there's a line in the play that says, if Athens had empowered its women, they might have won that war with Sparta, and put them to use. And then now the play takes place 100 years later in Macedonia, and Olympias, Alexander's mom, is trying to imbue in her kid that women are mighty, and Aristotle can't quite get over his own prejudices that women should be, left in the home, in that government is for men, and political thinking and philosophical thinking is for men, and she's capable. And so he kind of meets his match and has to challenge his own beliefs. So I hope there's also some awareness, and the audience leaves with the idea that you have to challenge your own assumptions. If you don't do it, no one will.
Oh, yes. I thought the part about I mean, as a woman, I thought that that part of the story was incredible. Just seeing the her stand up for herself and for other women and like showing that like yeah, I'm equal. I have the same I think like you do. Like
Yeah,
I'm I can be smart, powerful, influential, all of the above.
yeah, yeah. There's some good examples throughout history. Um, and Olympias, I definitely think she's an underdog, but she also takes advantage of being underestimated.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I think women are good at doing that. Taking advantage of being underestimated. I think still women are good at doing that.
Yeah, it has to be in a way. That's kind of like those are the givens that we have
Yeah.
to work within. And I think the last thing, that I leave the audience with is kind of the realistic, the word is realpolitik. Like how do things work? How does somebody get power?
Yeah.
And it wasn't clean then and it's not clean now. So we leave on an ambiguous note where Alexander is going to choose power over wisdom and power over truth, at least temporarily. If you look further at the history, you realize that Alexander was influenced by Aristotle, and he didn't set the cities that he conquered on fire or destroy them. So he went to Persepolis and he went to Egypt and created the biggest library in the world in Alexandria. That was because of him. So that was an evolution in leadership. Because back in the past, it was, win and stomp out every remaining, sign of the civilization you conquered. And Alexander was smart enough to say, hey, that's really interesting over here. And this is a very interesting cultural thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Don't out.
he kicks off multiculturalism, and even his own soldiers were shocked, but he was fascinated by everyone else. He was fascinated by the Egyptians, the Ethiopians, the Persians. They were all interesting to him, enough for him to respect their cultures.
Yes. I was gonna say also what stuck out to me during your talk back is you brought up that leaders like we're kind of electing or empowering the wrong leaders right now because these leaders who we are like looking towards do care about the money aspect more than the people aspect of things and that the right leader is going to be someone who cares more about the people than the money aspect.
Yeah, that just keeps repeating. It's these cycles of democracy. Plato writes about it in the book, his most famous book, The Republic. And I think I probably mentioned it that day, but he talks about five cycles of democracy or rule. Not democracy is one of them.
Yeah.
And then it eventually gets to people who are the next generation of the first people who created a democracy so they could all be together and live together in society. That next generation doesn't value it as much. Now they realize there's favors, and if you're in power, you can get favors. And then
Right.
you have the next generation, which is like, hey, if we all get together, we can actually rule this thing. And then there out of that arises tyranny, which is one guy who's like, I can rule all those people. So we're in a kind of a tyranny now. We're getting into a tyranny, and it's part corporatocracy and part um, straight up I'm the boss. And that doesn't last long either.
uh, and it's scary I feel like because like yes there's lesser evils but it's also on both sides and we're kind of like ignoring it on I don't know people are like well it's only on one side and I'm like no there's a lesser of evils yes absolutely but it's
Yeah.
on both sides.
Yeah, now there's not much variation within it. This political system is going to survive. You have to be a certain type of animal.
Well yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild, and I hope, as you mentioned, that we do find someone who has the priority people versus like the money materialistic aspect of things, because like I don't know, I feel like that is going to change the world right now.
It's not gonna be a smooth transition.
No, not at all. Kind of scary.
Yeah.
um so before I get to my last question, where can people find tickets for the show, and how would you convince them to come and see this show?
Well, the play's running at Company of Angels in Los Angeles, and you can get tickets at aristotlealexander.com. And you guys can Google that, and you'll find it. aristotlealexander.com. And I would just say that if you find yourself, if you're curious about what's going on in the world and are tired of being hit over the head with memes, political memes that are on the nose, that this play offers a pretty interesting perspective and a very optimistic perspective about the fact that this what we're experiencing in today's society has occurred over and over and over again. And so there are some heights that we can look forward to. Like I said, there are highs with lows. It's something that always happens historically. But I promise you won't be bored, and you'll see some pretty high level artistry. All the cast are extremely experienced pros, and an original score and the video design. You're going to get swept away. You're going to get swept away for an hour and 90 minutes in a way that you haven't been before. I'm experienced enough to promise you that.
Yes, absolutely. I was really intrigued by the sword fighting too, or the not the sword fighting, the sword like flinging, because
Yeah.
like not gonna lie, if you tell me that like I don't care if it's like a fake sword, I would be like like hitting myself
Yeah.
nonstop with it accidentally. I'm not that coordinated, and that was really impressive that he was just like swinging it around in circles. And
Yeah, so so we had a fight coordinator, and this is just another level of seriousness with which, we're doing this production. We had a fight coordinator named Orion Barnes, who has been teaching many years and done very big films and liked this project, so came on board and taught Nicholas Clary some techniques and also some styles because we have very specific styles in that time of swordplay. It was a broadsword in the Hellenistic period, and but it goes across the board. Our costume director did research at the Getty, is a
yeah.
docent at the Getty. Our composer is from Athens, Greece.
Oh,
Double PhD now at UCLA. So everyone who's involved in this project
has knowledge.
is a pro.
Yeah, is knowledgeable too. Knows what they're doing. And my last question is, what are future plans for this project? Do you have plans to adapt it to like other mediums? Do you have plans to take it to other cities, to take it to Greece?
Yeah, that would be the ultimate end goal. As a New Yorker, I kind of develop plays in Los Angeles, and they all go to New York. So this will go to New York at some point for an off-Broadway run.
Yeah.
And the Brits love this time period, so I would like to get it up in the West End as well in London. Um, and over the years, I've made some connections there. And then, the last production of this should be in Athens somewhere or throughout Greece. The theater scene in Greece is incredible.
Oh my
It's,
gosh.
it's I think it's better than New York. Every time I go, I see more and more impressive, high level productions, and they're not just doing the classics; they're doing modern theater, but they have it in their blood like the British have Shakespeare in their blood. They're terribly serious about take it serious. So there's lots of theater companies that I think I could approach, and or maybe I take this cast, I do it in English, and I have like Greek super titles.
Oh, I
And
and I was gonna say if you got offered or if there was like interest, would you do it on TV or film?
Yeah, I would love to go to the site Mieza where Aristotle taught Alexander the Great. It's in northern Greece, and the area is called Mieza. It's a small town, and I would love to get permission to rebuild the actual lab, which was there's some caves where they taught in the caves because it was hot. And then you can see the holes in the wall where the pillars came out to make a portico. And you would hang cloth over it so it would be cool and hang cloth. And then the inside, you can see little nooks and crannies in the walls where they stored stuff. So yeah, let's go rebuild that and actually shoot it in the actual location.
Oh, that'd be so
That
cool.
would be,
That'd be amazing.
yeah,
Well, I hope all those future plans happen because I feel like this is such, I was very intrigued and I was like leaning forward in my seat the whole time. And I'm, I mean, my mind is in 300 places at once. So to hold my attention span is always impressive of a show to do.
awesome.
And I was very, very, very impressed. I was extremely happy I came to see the show.
Yeah, we were glad you came as well, and let us know if you want to come back with a friend, and we will
Definitely.
make arrangements.
I absolutely will. And thank you so much for joining today. I'm so glad we could make this happen. I will let you know when this is up online. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great week. And I am wishing the show tons of success. And I will definitely be telling my friends about it.
Thanks for having me on, Becca.
Thanks for watching this episode of Backstage with Becca B. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca B Talks TV. Or for more exclusive content from this interview and more, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Backstage with Becca B. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.